Undefined is inspired by my heritage. So just to give you a bit of background, so I'm from Cape Verde, first of all. I always start the story and I tell the story and then I'm like, oh, you guys don't know where I'm from. It's Cape Verde. So Cape Verde, it's an island country off the coast of West Africa. We were a Portuguese colony, and before they discovered the country, it was actually uninhabited. So what happened is, because of our strategic location, we end up being like a port slave. So like for the trade, and then they end up bringing like Africans from all over Africa, enslaved people. Then they brought Europeans, which was the settlers, and it was like from all over Europe. So whenever people say, oh, you're a mixture of Portuguese and I don't know, some country in Africa, I'm like, no, we are a mix of many countries in Africa and many countries in Europe. So let's say some of the streets in my country, they will have a name like Miller or Spencer. You have people that the first name is Portuguese and the second name is, I don't know, British. So it's a huge...
your own name.
Yeah, exactly. It's a huge... it's a melting pot of cultures, which is great, but then it created another problem for the people that end up being the mixture between those two continents, which was a sense of identity. So we had like this sense of lost identity. So to give you an example, like I know the story of my father, but my father doesn't know anything about the story of his father, because what we learned in school or what was like preserved during the centuries was the European side. So we lost anything about our African heritage, and because like the names had to be erased, like the African names were erased, the African dances, folklore, anything was erased. But one thing that art does, it keeps it alive in a very how do I say, disguised way. So we keep it alive through dance, we keep it alive through music, through like spoken word, through poems. And I remember like this is something that we actually studied in school, like the loss of identity and the huge identity crisis that we had for like I don't know how many years, but it was a lot of years. And so we had to create and we had to find our own identity. So instead of defining ourselves as one thing or the other thing, we decided to define ourselves as everything. So we are everything. I have European blood, I have African blood, I probably have Indian blood. I don't know, because like so many people pass through that, and I think we have this necessity of defining ourselves into one thing when we are composed of so many things. So undefined for me is the sense of I don't need to define myself into okay, I am a black woman. I'm like, like the fact that I'm a black and I'm a woman, it doesn't define who I can be or what I can achieve. So the whole purpose or the whole idea behind Undefined is that like you can be whoever you are. You don't need to define yourself into one thing while you can be so many things. And she's Oshun. Sorry, so she's the goddess of love. She's a Yoruba, which is a tradition in Nigeria. She's a goddess of river, love, and I love mysticism. And in Africa there's so many stories and they were lost, but they are still there if you go and search for them. So they are part of this exhibition is the research that I made myself to learn about my heritage, because in school books what you learn is all about how Europeans came to Africa and they brought civilization and they brought this and that, and I'm like, we had a civilization before. I mean, it's not your civilization, but it was a civilization. And so I try to learn about all those things, and I learned so much. And like I say to all my friends that are Africans or mixed or were born here, I was like, go and find about your African heritage, and it's just going to empower you so much, because you will see like most of the things you see nowadays in this world, they actually came from Africa. Like, I'm talking about art, I'm talking about architecture, I'm talking about medicine, like so many things. And when I try to give them examples, you can just see their eyes. They're like, really? Like, yeah. So, yeah, I hope this inspires people to actually go and search more about their um, their ancestors, and not only the bad part, because I think we try to focus too much on the bad part. Like, go look at the dance, go look at the architecture, the art that they made. It was amazing. Go and inspire yourself. So this show is dedicated to my grandma Maria and my auntie Mumbi. So I grew up with them. So when I was 2 years old, I don't know what happened, but they told me that I went to visit my grandma and I didn't want to leave. And they just left me there because I didn't want to leave. So I was meant to stay there for a few weeks with her because I really loved her. I don't know, I felt like super connected with her. And like a few months end up being like 18 years. So I literally stayed 18 years with her until I moved to Portugal. So my grandma is literally the strongest woman I've ever met. Like, she lived through the period where we were still a Portuguese colony. So when she was super young, she had to go to one of the coffee plantations. So she was working in a coffee plantation in Santo Tomé and Príncipe, which was another colony from Portugal. I don't know, where is it? Well, it's in Africa. It's an island country as well, but it's really far away from Cape Verde. And she went there. I think she was really young. She was probably 15 or something. And just the fact that being so young, and she was already so responsible, and she wanted to provide for her mom and her dad, and she went there, and then she stayed there for many years, and she had 7 kids. One of them died really young, but she literally. So we live in this very patriarchal world and it was worse back then, so where she literally ended up raising the kids by herself, because the dads, so 2 of them were Portuguese. One of them were actually the owner of the plantation, and he is the father of my father, but he never recognized my dad. So my dad doesn't have a father's name, so he only has the mother's name, and that's something I think really upsets my dad in a way. So I really admire my grandma for being so strong and raising 6 kids while working in a plantation all day. And she was a general, first of all. I remember when I was like super small, like I wanted to do not super small, when you were transitioning from being a kid to teenage years and you want to go to parties. Oh my god, I had like to ask her a month in advance if I could go, and then she would like, oh yeah, you can. And then let's say the party is starting at 9, she would send me to the party at 7, and at 8 she's sending my brother to pick me up. I'm like, the party hasn't started, what are you talking about? So I think because she had like a really tough life, she wanted me to focus a lot on my studies. She was always encouraging me. Like the main thing for her is that I had an education, because no one in my family actually went to university. I was the first one, so she was super proud of that. She loved the fact that I had this artistic spirit, whatever, but when it came to actually a profession, she was like, no, you need a diploma, blah, 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 blah. And because I always did like costumes and those things. I always did it since I was like a teenager. Like I used to do like shows in my village. Like I used to, yeah, it was insane. I used to go to the big corporations, and I literally would go and ask for money to do shows in my. They would actually give me. I was like, "Are you sure?" Okay. They would give me money, and some of them, if they couldn't give me money, they would give me like the material for me to do the clothes, or they would give me like trainers for me to do the stage, and then I would get DJs, and we would do like massive celebrations, and that was fine for my family until I had to pick like a profession. So I am actually like a trained lawyer, which I never ever did anything with the degree. It's just like it's just there. But the reason I picked law is because I have this utopic dream, well I had before, that I could save the world, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna study law, and then I'm gonna work with the UN, and I'm gonna save the world, and blah blah blah. And yeah, that was a very utopic dream. But look,
you're still saving them.
yeah.